they're all faced with basically the same problem, which is there is no answer to the question, what are you going to do about energy and how is this going to affect the consumer in a month, in 2 months? It's Restoration Hardware, which is always reliably bonkers. They released their quarter in video form last night. If you guys haven't seen it, it's worth going over to the Restoration Hardware investor relations page. They sort of had background music as though you were at a nice spa, and they showed a lot of kind of soft focus footage of their restaurant in Paris, which is wildly, just overpriced and delayed. Quote from Albert Einstein talking about the work. As it turns out, Einstein had a lot of quotes, one of which is two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. He seemed to be referring to Restoration Hardware after that backed. At least that's how the market took it. Shares down 20%, really pushing on COVID lows at this point. And so you've taken a company that kind of tripled down on the luxury end of the market. Things are not going well. And this is a little bit of an outlier case. It's a company that's held on for a long time. They've done a lot of short squeezes. Nike's probably more concerning for a longer term consumer perspective. The question there is this just a boomer company whose time has passed and who has leaned for at least a decade too long into the Michael Jordan brand? They plan to address the World Cup by coming out with Jordan soccer gear. I'm not sure how Michael Jordan is associated with soccer. I'm not sure how that's going to sell in Europe. And he's a cranky old golfer at this point. But that stock is at 10-year lows, at least 10-year lows at this point, down some 15%. And again, these companies just don't have any answer. The turnaround there is taking a lot longer than expected. That's not particularly surprising for people who were paying attention to what's going on in the marketplace, but it also reflects that uphill battle for consumer companies right now. Their expenses are going up, their top line's going down, and if you're not just right there in the zeitgeist of fashion, if there's any expectations, you're in a lot of trouble. Nike seemed like it's making a bottom. They're obviously, it's a popular company to sell. If you're kind of on the brokerage side, it seems like one of those. To your point, you mentioned it's Robert. The idea that should this company be higher in 6 months? It's beaten down. They still had about 80% buy rankings on it, and they just simply crapped the bed last night. It was just, the CEO's 18 months into it said this turnaround is taking longer than expected. We're not really getting any innovation. It's not a very good company right now,
So
and there's
I
not a
so
lot of
on
signs of
Nike.
turning.
I mean, on Nike, is it fair to say that if you got three people like us together at a cocktail party and you said, who's the greatest basketball player of all time? There'd be a big debate about Michael Jordan. But if you go to someone who's 18 or 25, they're like, "Hey, boomer, get over it. Like, let's talk about other stuff." I mean, is that fair when you think about the zeitgeist of Nike?
Oh yeah, the NBA is falling out of it, and the players aren't moving shoes now. It's that remember it used to be the Final Four is going on this weekend, and that used to be a huge deal. The big axe fight over which company had the most Final Four teams, and who was sponsoring who and what kind of shoes were they wearing, as recently as 5, 6 years ago. No one cares. I have no idea whose shoes are being worn in the Final Four, but I know it's not going to move a lot of product. LeBron James is the other name that people would take if they're even willing to take up the argument of who's the greatest basketball player of all time, and no one's buying LeBron shoes. It's just not a thing anymore. And so the time has passed, and the company needs new ideas, and they just don't have them. They've made up some share in running, but apparel is just incredibly weak for them. There's not. It's not just a matter of them missing athleisure. They've missed fashion trends in general. If you're going to lean that hard to apparel, you can't just be an athleisure house. And so they've got some style problems going against them, but that's normal. It's cyclical. They've been a good company for 20, 40 years. They've gone through cycles in the past, but to have this long losing streak, they've got a few different things going on. One thing, structurally, they screwed themselves up by trying to go direct to consumers, open a bunch of stores. Turns out Nike's not very good at retail. So now they're going back into the retailers and trying to make up for it there, but that's just kind of shoveling sales from one channel to another. And the end result is there's a little stick in terms of moving from one channel to the other. They're having to mark down goods on their direct-to-consumer side while they sell stuff at retailers. That makes it harder for the retailers to sell things full price, and you end up right where you started, with a bunch of stuff in the discount bin with nothing moving sales, and they just seem tired. They've had Caitlyn Clark under contract for 2 years. There is no Caitlyn Clark shoe. And so
Yeah,
everyone
you've
says, "Oh,
mentioned this. You've
Nike's."
mentioned this. You've mentioned this for like 6 months and a year or so.
The
Like
fact that I've been able to
I
mention
still
this for
can't
about the
believe
last
that.
6 months or a year, it's just baffling. And all you hear is, "Oh, go woke or go broke. They're so hip." She's the most famous athlete in ages in America. In a world where there are no great American female tennis players, no one's really following the golfers all that closely. Caitlin Clark is it. She is all that in a bag of chips. You spend millions to have her under contract, and you don't make the woman a shoe. And so, are
Yeah.
you woke because it seems like you give her a shoe, or are you just stupid? In which case, it seems like you would just be focusing on selling Jordan stuff to a bunch of soccer fans. It seems like the latter is the case, and that's a big problem. So, you got a lot of folks on the street giving up on them today. Does that make for a washout? Well, you wash it out down here, and it's gone from 34 times forward earnings to, with the guide down of earnings and the price reduction, to about 33 times forward earnings. Awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It-
that doesn't get me super excited when there's no turnaround in line. It's like the price of gas. As long as it's going higher, people move away. As long as your earnings are going lower, your turnaround story is just kind of crap. It's, if you're telling me the next 6 months are going to be garbage, but we're going to turn it around after that. Well, you've said that now for 18 straight months. If you're the management there, and people are right to give up on it. It's you, and that's one rule of these bear markets, is you have people giving up on sort of the beloved names they've been clinging to, and the idea that this is going to be a turnaround. It's down 14% today. Was the quarter that bad? I don't know, because I kind of thought they were really bad before this, so it's not like they said anything that particularly shocked me.
it's
But
really surprising there.
it's
So
washing out.
yeah, I just pulled up their press release, and North America down 11%, Middle East 7% growth, China 11% growth, but down 20% year over year. So that's probably either, I mean, it could be stuffing, who knows, but it also could be an easy comp. But the U.S. is twice the size of China, so that doesn't so much matter. Latin America down 4%, global down 11%. Converse is somehow down 203%. I don't know how that works. It's actually negative, but that's it doesn't sound like such a great report. So is it fair to say, like, Restoration Hardware and Nike falling knives for you, that you're just not touching
Oh,
until anything, like,
absolutely not.
or are you shorting them here?
No, I'm wishing I was short them. It's, these are just a question of how bad the news is going to be responded to. Again, it's there's two parts of this game. One is you got to have a pretty good guess how bad the numbers are going to be. That part was relatively easy if you're a cynic and weren't a fan to begin with. People that have been long the stock have been waiting for, again, any sign. You just sort of need the negativity to asymptote it flat. You don't need it to go back up. You just need it to stop going lower so fast. And they weren't able to pull that off. They pushed back any growth potential for the next few quarters at least. I'm a big fan of new CEOs. I love, a name like Target that actually does have a low multiple, and I think good things are going on. I think they're making smart moves, and I think it's easier to turn them around because they aren't encumbered by so much of a brand as they are just an execution aspect of it. And it's easier to improve a store in some ways than it is to kind of exhume Michael Jordan and make him a big deal again. Nike just seems lost, and
Yeah.
that's going to get people to sell. But what I worry about it for as a harbinger of quarters to come is the fact that the reason you're not seeing people come to buy in the dip right now is it's really hard to answer the question. Okay, it's $6 a barrel for gas in California, not much lower than that in the rest of the country. Are people really going to be coming in to get those retro shoes? Do they really need, the new high end kicks? Nope, not really. They're going to go for the discounts, and man, margins are not so good in the discount bin. So,
Yep.
which was another problem that Nike has.